Good afternoon. I'd like you to use your imagination. You're in a room, all by yourself, ready to receive a deluge of people. Each one of these people has a different personality, background, and specific set of expectations. And you have no idea what you're about to get. Here is the challenge. You must adapt yourself and your way of doing things and your specific expectations to each one of those people. More importantly, you must also understand how to effectively communicate to each one of those people coming through those doors. Are we overwhelmed yet? To many of you, this is a terrifying image. But to some of you, this image is very familiar because it's what you deal with on a daily basis. Now, what's the first thing you think of when I present this challenge to you? Well, I'm sure that the majority of you are very intimidated by the fact that you are the first impression and the first line of defense that every single one of those people sees when they walk through those doors. And you're expected to meet every single one of their needs. How in the world do you begin to prepare to be successful at that? And how in the world do you deal with all of those people? It's like you have a daily audience that you have to impress. Well, the solution to this challenge, or one of them at least, is not what you would think. I know how to deal with this scenario because for 7 years, I trained for a Bachelor of Arts and a Master of Fine Arts in theater. And it was years after graduating that I had the revelation that that education changed my life. It trained me to become more adaptable, versatile, vulnerable, creative, and more importantly, how to adapt to each one of my ever-changing environments. In other words, you could say that a performing arts education taught me how to communicate with my audience. So how did a theater kid like me make a career out of 2 arts degrees? And why in the world should any of this matter to you? Well, it starts by being able to answer the challenge that I just presented to you. It starts with being more adaptable, versatile, vulnerable, creative, and also being inspired on a daily basis to treat the world as if it's your stage and understand how to communicate and adapt to your daily audience. So now let me give you some ways and show you some skills that a theater arts education teaches that prepares you for some real street smarts and professional situations outside of the arts. When I was a theater kid, I studied stage management. Yeah, you can actually master in stage management. Imagine that. To be a stage manager, I had to communicate everything I saw in a rehearsal room to a team of creative designers. Sets, props, costumes, lighting, sound. None of these people were present in the room. Yeah, none of these people were present in the room. I had to describe everything I saw. It's like trying to tell a blind person what a photograph looks like. That's hard. That's really hard. Not only did I have to communicate what was important in that rehearsal to them, but why and how that was important to them. Let me give you another example here. So I'm on this stage creating a picture. everything you see up here is delivering a specific message to you with me standing exactly where I'm standing. Now, if I decide to mess up this picture, like if I do this, first of all, I'm out of my light, but this creates a completely different message than this. And the people that need to know about that transition in that message conveyed to an audience have to know exactly what happened. And I had to communicate that, not only how and why, but in as few words as possible on a piece of paper. That was hard too. Not only did I have to communicate in as few words as possible to a creative team, but to also a crew, executing the lights, sound, and stage moves. And that crew executing the show, well, they weren't necessarily the same ones who designed it. I had to communicate that to some people that didn't even know what they were walking into. Once again, I was expected to be flawless in my communication, and I was also expected to find my voice. But now let's look at a bigger picture for a second here. A theater arts degree is seen by many as useless. No real financial return, no ability to climb the corporate ladder, no secure future, and no room for big achievements or career milestones. Except if you win a Tony Award, of course. It's essentially a waste of time and money. And when I graduated and was trying to make money after 2 theater degrees, those interviews, they were pretty fun. They went something like this. Miss Friday, I see you have a master's degree in theater? Yes, that's right. Well, you know, if you want to be successful and be in production, you don't actually need any of these degrees. My response to those types of remarks was typically, but it's what I wanted to do, it's where my passion was. And their response, many of them, passion or not, these arts degrees actually won't get you anywhere. Well, they did get me somewhere. First of all, I wouldn't be on this stage talking to you if it wasn't for arts education and training. They positively shaped my future. Now let's look at a couple of other scenarios. Being in school for theater gives you some pretty thick skin. When you're studying for a performing arts education, the curriculum is driven by a common phrase, you may have heard of it, baptism by fire. There's usually no time, and you're having to deal with constant deadlines and multiple personalities. No one holds your hand. Everyone has an expectation of you, your work, and every single guest artist, instructor, technician, director thinks that they have the most important part of the production that needs your full attention every second of the day. In other words, you have multiple bosses on a daily basis. And while you're trying to deal with all of this, you're constantly bombarded with constructive criticism, not getting the part, the constant pat on the back, the positive feedback on a daily basis. Arts education teaches how to cope and deal with disappointments. I left my arts education understanding how to cope with the no's in life. I learned how to deal. To learn and apply all these skills, it took 7 years in what I like to call theater boot camp. Remember that image of all those people coming through those doors? Well, I was introduced to all of them during my arts education. And guess what else I was introduced to? Adapting to someone else's work styles. The arts teach that. Learning how to practice skills correctly and more effectively. The arts teach that too. Learning how to deal with difficult people. You don't need a pamphlet course for that. The arts teach that. Learning to create and seek opportunity. That's a big concept. Arts education actually teaches that. I came out of my arts education not afraid to put myself out there, make connections, and network. I was forced to develop my creativity and identify where the opportunity was. I was also forced to identify the skills and talents that I had as a human and as a creative being, and understand how to parlay those into many other professional situations that had nothing to do with theater and the performing arts. Understanding ethics, culture, adaptability in society, figuring out my place, and figuring out how to deal and adapt to every single one of my ever-changing environments. Guess what taught me all of that? 2 theater degrees. And let's not forget about the most important skill that an arts education teaches. That is just simply storytelling. By telling a story on a stage, theater graduates are equipped to understand how to create a brand, convey a thought, idea, strategy, and envision the message and life of a product, organization, and corporation. Storytelling is by far the most important skill that an arts education can give to its students. There is no effective communication or performing arts without some sort of story behind it. Without my arts education, I wouldn't be driven. I wouldn't be self-employed. I wouldn't own a business. I wouldn't take risks. I wouldn't even put myself outside of my comfort zone. That's what theater boot camp got me. I can read a script and a business plan. I can audition to give a TEDx, and I can also interview for a job. I can tell a really good story, and I can also convey brand messaging. I can deal with the high stakes of preparing to produce a show and the high stakes of budget and project deadlines. I can read music and also profit and loss statements. I can negotiate with a team of very creative egos in a production meeting. And I can also negotiate with a salesman. Theater arts degrees do not just produce directors, writers, actors, stage managers, dancers, singers. They produce CEOs of companies, managers, entrepreneurs, visionaries, and storytellers. They see the vision and how to get there. And what separates those with an arts education apart from anyone else is their ability to diversify skills, their inspiration to seek and create opportunity, and their ability to communicate in a language understood by so many people through storytelling. All the world is a stage. And the true revelation is that that useless degree, well, it just became a lot more useful. Thank you.